Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIY Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Good afternoon. It's July 10th, and we're ready to rock and roll today. Today we are talking Boys Matter, and we are excited about our guests. We got what's your name again?
Heather Hetteru.
Yeah, we got what she said in the building. To kick it off, and our special guest in the building, Brother Reginal Williams, author, leader, mentor of the beautiful book Marginal Voices, A Marginal Voice. And today he and I are going to have a conversation on boys and how, we like to get into some solutions around here. So we're going to talk about his book a little bit. Then we're going to get into some solutions. You can call in 313. What's that number? 621 or 261? 266-2811. 313-266-2811. You can get your questions asked today around boys. We're excited about that. And so let's get right to it. How you doing, Heather?
I'm awesome today. It's been a very somber yet joyous day. Celebrating life today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to. You have to celebrate life. I think the young fella had the TV on.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And, yeah. So, we had buried my aunt today, which over the last week, the last 2 months, we buried her husband first, then buried her.
Right.
50 some odd years of marriage. Most definitely put it in, left a beautiful legacy. 16 kids and grandkids, grandchildren, 16 grandchildren, left 5 boys. Grown men, pastors, deacons, all kind of, and my mother's sister. And it was, like she say, somber, but, we like to celebrate these things. And that's what we're looking to do, is to celebrate these things. And that, when you accomplish 50 years of marriage to the same man, when you never miss a day of work, as my uncle never missed a day of work, we're working at Oakland County Children's Village. Never called off. Didn't miss your children's events. Went to your cousins, nephews' events, basketball games, right? Like, they put on a show. I don't know nobody went to Hawaii more than my aunt and uncle. And I'm talking about they went, I'm saying, well over 20 times. We learned today that the kids got to go to Disney World quite a bit, right? And
Twice a year.
And
Which would be a feat in today's world, because
right.
I'm told that the to get to Disney World is close to $200 a person, if not $200.
But the right, and the funny part is the funny part about this situation is, you having boys, but what they say, what the hilarious thing was, my cousin talked about could nobody get the most out of $1 than my aunt.
All right.
And I'm gonna tell you something. He ain't never lied, because whenever you went over my aunt's house, it was always food. It was always snacks. It was always something for you. You could pull in there if you was hungry. You was gonna eat, all right? So that's how we grew up. That's how my mom. That's how, their doors were always open through my family, right? And so I just wanted to share that moment with you all. But we're gonna get right into this conversation.
I think it's a good lead in, though. It's about keep putting your family first, and it was just a reason to celebrate what family looks like. You know, what the model for family should be, which is, you know, our parents, you know, raising children to be adults and be parents and be mothers and fathers and be community members and, you know, stand on what you believe. So I think it's a fitting put your family first conversation to have as we talk to our guest to bring him on.
Yes. So, like I said, without further ado, Brother Reginal Williams, a marginalized voice, a brother who we've been bonding since Mark Cummings put us together, and just excited about to have this conversation. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. First of all, I just got to say condolences to the family. But again, I do agree, definitely a celebration of life. You have an ancestor who was, you know, while walking on earth was watching over you, but now you have another angel in heaven watching over you. So my condolences to you and your family.
Yes.
Blessings.
Yes. So with that being said, but Reg, you know, we get into it. How, you know, kids are very important to you. How many kids do you have?
3. 3.
So you're a father of 3. So you've been in the trenches.
Yeah, 44 years now. That's the oldest.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I wasn't expecting you to say that.
I know. I wasn't either.
I thought you were going to say teenagers, like 9, 12, 15.
No. Well, I'm only 46, you know. But you know,
you started early.
But the reality
of it. Marry me.
The reality is that you don't get a day off to say that you're not even at this age, because I was actually dealing with some issues between the oldest and the middle over the weekend, and you know, had to kind of calm them down. So you know, he's married with 3 kids, and she's single, but still, you know, you got to play daddy to him.
Right.
For sure.
Right. That's how it go. Yeah. So to get into this thing, what really got you started to write the book, A Marginalized Voice?
And that's the number one question. To be quite honest with you, and I always say, I don't know that when I started out, that I really started out with the intention of writing a book. I've been in behavioral health for 20 years. I started out working with adult men, and actually the majority of my career, you know, it's 21 years at this point, 22 years, been working with men. But just all the different occasions going in and out of the prison system in terms of, you know, working with them, going to court, I started to feel the weight of some of that energy, and I just decided, you know, at one point to sit down, and I needed to get it off of me. And so I ended up writing, I guess that somewhere in the back of my head, I knew it was a book, but I ended up writing like 4 chapters. And after I wrote those 4 chapters, man, I kind of put those chapters in a bag, put it under the desk, and it sat there for another 2 or 3 years until, you know, God tapped me on the shoulder and said, are you going to finish the book? So it wasn't necessarily this thing where I was inspired and I needed to write it. It was more of trying to deal with some of the, I guess, vicarious trauma that I was dealing with in terms of working with my clientele. But somewhere in there was a book, and I just began to tell the stories of those who I had helped over the last 20 years.
And then, of course, you've been in it for 20, going at it, you know, and helping, and that would be the motivation. You know, did you have any question before I got to my next question? Because I know, you know, if you don't let them speak, Reg.
Look, I'm not getting in that, man. You're not getting me there.
Well, more of a comment. So really, just thank you for being present. Thank you for, you know, your work your consistency. Thank you for raising your children, because that is really where we make our mark. And not only in the work that we do, but how we do that same work in front of our children. That's what we deposit back into the world. So thank you for that. I'm sure as you guys continue this conversation, I'm going to have some more questions. But right now, I'd rather have my comment and thank you up front. So thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So the one thing that intrigued me was the Malcolm Jenkins, and your chapter 2 about how you restoring communities, because we do this work, you and I. What does it look like? What really were you getting into when you talked about we had to remove the traps laid by marginalized people and communities and all?
When you look at it, and I've said this before, one of the struggles of being a brother, a black man in America, and again, I have to always say this, right? I said this in the introduction of the book. Every population of people other than white men are marginalized at some level, right? So we're not the only ones that's marginalized. I think the only difference for us as boys and men is that we don't have a national voice to speak for us. And so I was just trying to start this conversation, right? And so when you begin to, when you're a black man in America, you're playing defense all the time, right? And it's hard to be the best that you can be when you're always on the defense, And so there's these different traps, man. To walk to the corner is a trap. To stay in the house is a trap. So in order for us to build community, we have to first remove all these traps that exist within the communities. And sometimes it is the educational system that exists. Sometimes it's even our parents, We don't like to say that, but the reality of it is. I remember my kids getting a little bit older, and I thought I did a fantastic job as a dad, but they had to sit me down and say, "Yeah, Dad, you missed the mark in some places," and I had to eat that.
Right. Yeah, and it comes with it. That's fine. I can take that. You know what I mean? That, for real. Like, because there is no, let's see, you handle it a little better. Show me, you know what I mean? Because your opinion, these kids keep opinions, right? Because you have to be, and this is just me, but, I'm saying everything tell you to question anything about black fathers, you know what I mean? So everything tell you to question it. Like, Dad, you wasn't Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. You know what I mean? I get it. That I wasn't. But you not locked up. You not drunk. You're not falling off a cliff. You didn't jump. You had clothes, right? Now I need you to take this to a whole nother level. If you can smash me, let's go. You know what I mean? Let's. I'm gonna encourage you to go be better. You know what I mean? Show me with your kids. You know what I mean? Because these kids, they love to come to the table because that's what everything tell them. Go tell your father, and he'd be like, "Well, Dad, Yeah, I'm like, yeah, tell me. Man, you really drunk. You know what I mean? So I understand what you mean by the traps too. The traps, and it's more than just that. It's more than just going to the store. It's actually physical traps. It's actually physical housing. There are syndromes and things like that we deal with. You know what I mean? And so I love that, the fact that the other one is, I'm about to get into the real piece. What I love most about fatherhood is the opportunity to be part of the development process of a new life that was sealed. That's one of your quotes from your book. And come on, give me that fatherhood, brother. I'm
again, it is, man. You get you're if you come from a Christian background, because everybody might not believe this, right? But we look at, we in a Christian background, we look at our children as gifts, and they really don't belong to us, right? They're God's children, and He gives us the opportunity to mold them. And so, in that process of molding, right, it becomes a very artistic, art has no rules and no boundaries, so to speak. And so you get an opportunity to participate in a life in such a way that is very unique. And each child that you have is a different experience. Like, you just can't say one size fits all. So having that opportunity to be a part of that development is an amazing thing. And for me, everyone doesn't think like this. It's like, I don't necessarily have all the answers, but we're gonna walk this thing out together, and we're gonna figure it out. And it's gonna be real cool in doing it.
Yeah, that's another thing.
No,
We in agreement. See, we always in agreement. That's the thing. We ready to go battle, right? But yeah, I have to 100% agree with you. Have you came across the question yet as we moving? Because this is fatherhood, so I don't want to hog up this section, right? Because that's what I'll do. So
can you talk a little bit more when you talk about the term marginalized? Can you give our listeners some understanding of what you mean when you say that?
It's the easiest example I can give is you're pushed to the margins, right? For some reason, you don't fit within the core of the existence, so we're going to push you to the margins. And being pushed to the margins, what you feel, what you think, how you see, what your perspective is, doesn't matter, right? Because you're on the outside. And I think for a lot of us, like, again, we, in terms of questioning our parents, my moms and pops, they were great parents, but I had issues with both of them, in the sense that I felt like my voice wasn't heard. My dad was born in 1931 in rural North Carolina. And so that was one of those things, you do as I say, and there wasn't no back and forth conversation, right? And my mom's, she grew up in that same era, same town. And she grew up under those same principles, but she grew up and she said, well, I don't want to treat my kids like that. I want them to have a voice. Well, we would have these conversations, but I felt like she never listened to me, right? It's like whatever I said kind of just went out the window. So when I started writing the book, I didn't necessarily realize that, or that wasn't a motivation. But as I was writing the book, I began to, those old traumas began to kind of stir up. And so, it's just a matter of not being heard, and it's not a matter of being seen. And what happens when you're not heard and seen? What is the African proverb? If I don't feel the warmth of your love, I can't remember what it is, but it's just a matter of being put on the outside, not belonging.
And you've seen this in your work. Have you seen like patterns of that in the work, in terms of the men and the boys that you've worked with over the years? Are there common threads that you see?
I see it in my existence. Like, for instance, I am usually I'm in a room primarily with women, right? Mm-hmm. Usually I'm in a room primarily, and I'm usually one of few males, if any, right? I'm usually in that room, and in terms of academia, I have less education because I don't have a PhD, right? And oftentimes when I have a conversation or I'm making comments, you get that feeling like my comments are not valued. I remember one particular situation. There's this therapist that I work really close with, and after we had this meeting, she said, "Hey, can I have a conversation with you?" And I was like, "Sure." She says, I think your voice is a little too authoritative. I said, "What does that mean?" Right? She said, and she couldn't really explain it. So I said, well, let me ask you something. Is what I said or what I offered, was I rude? She said, no. I said, was my tone out of place? She said, no. I said, did anything I offered, was it wrong? She said, no. I said, well, then that's their problem, right? It's not my problem. And so I often have to come in there, man, and just fight for space, because for whatever the reasons are. And so you see it in boys see it because, if you go back to the old, what was it, Boys in the Hood, where Lawrence Fishburne's, I can't remember, Trey, where his son was having a conversation in the classroom and he was going kind of back and forth with the teacher in terms of where Africa was from or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it was, how the teacher just didn't have any, there was no value in what he had to say. So yeah, we see this often. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, indeed.
And it's very, very, it can be very frustrating, but then sometimes it can make you very aggressive, right? It can put you in an aggressive mode that, what you're saying becomes, because you are studying this stuff, right? You're studying this stuff, right? So this ain't some stuff that, we just came in here and decided, hey, today I'm just going to talk about boys, and
right,
and answer your conditioning. You've been conditioned to speak against me, right? And so if I answer your conditioning and be like, okay, let me tone it down, I'm going backwards. I didn't come forward, right, to go backwards. And so, sometimes that's, for us, it's about having that voice and being a defender. I think that's where we hit common ground at, our tone might come off, tough, or it might come off like, I'm telling you this, right? This is not something that I'm talking to you about to really just be kind about it. I'm come to deliver this message, but I'm telling you, right? So I'm cutting into your conditioning. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people when we begin to talk about how important males and boys are. You know what I mean? And so when you use that marginalized, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, but I apologize, but Heather, I thought about a situation. There's a young man I used to work. Well, not used to. I still work with him. Brother by the name of Kelly. Kelly probably has had 20 plus years in prison, federal penitentiary for some major drug charges. He's gotten out of prison and he's done wonderful work in this field. And we were in a class one day, and Kelly's a big dude. Kelly's probably 6'2", probably 340, 350. And so we're in this class, and the proctor is asking questions, and Kelly is speaking rather softly, And so the proctor comes over and says, "You're such a big guy to be speaking so soft." And he said, "I have to do that, man, in order to not intimidate people."
Wow.
And that just blew me. It just blew me. Like, I have to lower my voice. I mean, again, I don't want to come across as being aggressive, and I don't want to be loud, and I don't want to be, not communicating in the correct way. But sometimes just to have a conversation and to be passionate about the conversation, it comes off as being aggressive. And in terms of being aggressive, I don't hear you.
Right.
And so
you raise my fears.
Yeah.
Or my
exactly.
Or my programming gets tapped into. That if you're aggressive then it's a whole list of things that go behind that and so that feeling that you get. Yeah.
Right. And so then that would be right. So now I'm marginalizing myself and Trey being shorter. Right. And Trey being shorter told me to accentuate the positive as I'm framing my assets. Right. And in order to asset frame, we have to remove, some of these, terms. Marginalized was one of them, and the whole nine. So, in doing so, we're going to move this second half into some solutions, right? Into, well, how can we, right? This is, put your family first. You're going into the second half of Put Your Family First podcast. I am your host, Kelvin Mann, and my guest is Reginal Williams, and our co-host, Heather Rue, is in the building. And, of course, on the wheels of steel, and the phone, and the computer, and the producer.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yeah, in the building. So, with that being said, one of the things I wanted to talk about first was resilience, and I had a quote I wanted to share about resilience, and the quote is, where's she at? Is you may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it. Maya Angelou, right? And resilience is something that we constantly are, the term is being thrown out there with mental health, right? Everybody wants to say, hey, let's get this resilience going on, right? And the whole nine. I'm really moving this conversation, Brother Reg and Heather, into solutions, right? And be that as it may, I think it's important, Reg, that however we answer these and put these solutions out there, I think it's important that people understand the power for which and where in your experience and where you come from, right? So, hey, I'm not the one to hold you back, right? I'm not the one to, play games with me. And so with that being said, Heather, do you have another question before I ask this question?
Well, I kind of would like to know, you talked a little bit about your family, because this is about putting your family first. When you think about the things that you've experienced in life, and you mentioned that your oldest was a son, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so he would be the first one to have seen you implement the things that you are doing in your career, in your life. He would be one of the people who actually would see that happening. Did you find in your work that there were times where your son felt like he needed your attention versus you putting that attention, or in addition to you putting that attention into your working with other people? I'm sure you came across people who were who became really a part of your tribe, right? Who were important to you, whose lives were important to you. Did you find that? How did your family, your children, respond to what you do for a living?
They're proud of me, but at the same time, that is a great question, because sometimes when you are so engaged in what it is that you do, someone feels like you have shorted them. And there have been those times when they have felt that way, and there had been times when I had to reassure them that wasn't necessarily the case.
Right.
And there's times I still have to do that, So especially with Darius. Darius is my son, because there have been a time or two where he's like, yo, you out there saving the world, man. We struggling,
Right.
So yeah, we've had that rub.
And so part of your response to that is to reaffirm who they are in your life, and that they are, a part of this process. I love when you talked about the beginning that we had to understand that our children they're not our possession, right? We're entrusted with them. I so believe that. And I had my own mental check when I had my son, that because I was really anxious about him being in this world and what I was going to do and all those things. And I got a good ripe check about, well, he's not yours, he's mine. You have been entrusted with him. And when I got that word, it did a lot for me. It actually liberated me, because I felt so much pressure as a parent to be able to do all things and do all things in perfect order. And I didn't give myself a break. And so I think part of this process is that we take some of that wisdom from our education and from our experience and from our parents, and that we take that to the next level as we become parents and we do this purpose-filled work that you're doing. So I think that makes so much sense in terms of looking at solutions. As parents, we give what we have to give in those moments. You get to grow and live another day. You have more tools, but where you are in those moments is what you have to give. And so, but the more you understand and the more you give, is part of the solution, is to have that level of understanding. And I think for parents, it is a level of resilience too, that you can really, where you were 10 years ago as a parent may not be the same place you are now 10 years later as a parent. we got to give that to ourselves, right? We got to say we have new tools, we have new information. And so that I'm hearing that from you as well, that's a very important part of this journey. We need to make sure in terms of our solutions that we do cut ourselves some slack. We do what we can with what we have and where we are in those times. And just kind of reaffirm to our children that you are important, that, you are of value. We have to say those things to them over and over again for as many times as we need to let them know that is part of this process too. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think that the greatest gift that we can give them is not solution, but presence, right? I'm here. I may not know the answer to this question. I may not know how necessarily to get this, and I may know how to do it, and I may not. Right. But more than anything else, I'm going to walk with you through this process.
Yes.
And I think that's the greatest thing that we can do in anything really is, even in working with the boys is I'll tell them all the time, I don't know if I know the answer to the question, or I don't know if I know how to get that done, but I'm going to walk with you through this process.
And that's important. Being there, being present. Mm-hmm. That's important.
Ding, 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 ding. Now we're moving into solutions. Thank you. Thank you for answering that, right? So honestly, Reg, I'd like to know, in this work, you've been doing it for so long. Let's start with your top 3, right, solutions to improving boys. And take your time.
Oh, that's good. So in the book, it actually isn't in the book. It was in the 4x6 that I added to the book. It's called a 10-point platform for young kings. And the first one is to seek out and embrace one young king, right? And the reason why you want to embrace someone is because people feel loved when they're embraced, right? And one of the things that many young kings do not feel is they do not feel anybody's embrace. The quote I was trying to quote before, the African Proverbs is the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth, right? We have to learn how to embrace these young men, right? Because once you do that, once they begin to feel the warmth of your soul, of your presence, that begins to be a change in how they see and how they act in the world. And I'm going to send this to you later on, Calvin. But there was a show on CBS Morning News. There was an episode where this young man in Memphis, Tennessee, kept finding this dude in the back of his. He owns a gym in the back of his gym, sleeping in one of his abandoned cars. And it's like a 3-minute episode, but in that 3-minute episode, that guy did at least 7 of the 10-point platforms that I have for my platform. So the first thing would be to seek out and embrace one young king at a time. The second thing is to befriend that young king, right? The thing that we all want to have is, I don't care who we are, we want to have somebody that we can call a friend. Somebody that we trust, somebody that we can talk to, somebody that we can share things with. And again, even in the friends that they think they have, they're not really friends. So if I, as an adult, I get the title of OG. If I, as an OG, can sit down and not sit down in front of him and say, this is what you need to do because this is what I did, but just sit down and just have I still listen to hip hop music because I want to know what they're listening to, and I want to be able to have that conversation with them about that, right? And then I want to be able to tell them some of my favorite artists and why, and listen to this track, and then they can give me theirs, and we can kind of go back and forth like that. But it's a way to engage them, And then the third thing I say is engage that young king in bilateral conversation. So in other words, we're just going to sit down, we're going to chop it up, man. I'm not sitting down trying to tell you how brilliant I am. We're just going to have a conversation, because once they get the opportunity to voice who they are or what's on their mind, and you listen without judgment and without elitism, right? They'll come back to you for more conversation. So those are my first 3, solutions. Seek out and embrace one young king, befriend that young king, and then engage with that young king in bilateral conversations.
Awesome. Okay. All right. The next question for you, next solution, is what is your approach in dealing with the single household?
Whew, you trying to get my brother in trouble. Well, the one thing that you have to understand is in any household, but I know you talk about the single household, but in any household, there's it's a strong possibility everybody is dealing with some trauma. So we have to recognize the trauma of each person and deal with them on an individual basis. And so, to get, again, the thing that you can't do, I found this out, you can't tell nobody anything, but you can offer. And if you can offer with good examples and good conversations, eventually they'll follow through. So the thing that I would want to do is, I know I've been in some households. I remember I went into one household, man, and it was so trauma. It almost scarred me. But I went in and I had just gotten this young king as a client, and I went in with the juvenile justice worker, and it was just straight trauma in that household. And I remember one of us having to take the child and have a separate conversation, and take the mother and have a separate conversation, and so that's a loaded question that has so many different variables to deal with. But the first thing is, you gotta, I always say this, man, if you really want to get to the solution of a problem, you have to first excavate and find out what the root of the problem is.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm there. It's like, and when I was referring to single household, I mean both headed by men, both headed by women, right?
Yeah.
Because, like you said, and that the trauma is one thing, and how you deal with that trauma or how you deal with that family. It's an unbelievable story. I remember a mom ran into somebody I know, and she was like, "You should call Calvin." So the mom, she called me, right? And this was early in the game. This was in between mentoring, everything, right? And the young man was threatening his mom. I never met this woman, right? This is the first time I'm meeting. So, we talked on the phone for a second. I said, well, I'm going to come over there, right? So I come over one morning. He don't go to school, right? So she opened up the door, right? He ain't actually even he ain't got a care in the world, right? He's supposed to be at school. This boy had 2 TV monitors, right? 2 PlayStations, had a pistol on the table, right? And was sleeping. Had been threatening his mom, was just starting to get in the gang and, all of this. So she opened up the door, showed me. I said, all right, you might want to step back. I said, what? I said, all right. So I go in, I take the pistol out. I hand her the pistol. He still ain't move. So I let him. About a couple more minutes, and I cracked the door. I said, hey, my man, wake up. And he jumped up out that bed, right, up against the wall. He looking for his pistol. Yeah, and everything. I said, oh, no, brother. You ain't got that. Who are you? I'm a friend. You might not want to see me again. I'm that friend. And he like, what you mean? First of all, take these TVs out of your room. You going to school. What? Yeah, let's go. Get up out the bed. So he don't have no choice because he don't know you. So he don't know what you're going to do, right?
Right.
Here this man is like, man, you ready to fight? We ready to fight. We ready to do whatever you want to do. You can't call your boys. Phone ain't in there no more. So now you ain't got the phone or the pistol. Right? And so once we took the TV monitors out of the room, we took the PlayStations out, right? Nah. He going off. Man, this is bull. Yeah. I said, have a seat, man. I said, this is the treatment you want for your mama, huh? I said, yeah. I said, well, let me explain something to you. You're going to jail or you're going to get killed. I've not seen it any other way. When you are disrespectful to your mom and your dad, I've not seen it any other way. I just have not. And here where we are, Reg, this is a normal thing. you know. So you know, and you know the statistics as well as I do. 85% of the abuse against a boy is done by his own mama, right? And so when we get into, you know, in this situation, I'm having this conversation, I was like, don't let me come back here. That's all. Just take care of your business, because your mom, that's all she... Dude, you got 2 PlayStations in your room and 2 monitors. Like, what other example do you need to care than you running around here manipulating, talk tough to her, threatening her? Now you're in the gang, you got a gun. What's next? What you think she coming to? You know what I mean? You never thought about that. That's it. You got to think about something. What you think your mother going to come to when the phone ring? Like, just explain that to me. So the phone ring, it's somebody on the end of the phone, that's not you, it's to your mom. She screams in the phone. What you think that's about? See, you want to play these games, play the manipulation game, trying to get out here and be older and grown. You get in these games. It's no way out, baby. You in a bad scenario. So the solution that you were just talking about, and the thing that we're talking about right now, you actually matter. So my next question to you, Reg, and to me it's very, very important that we understand the conversation that we're having here. And so my next question to you, and you can answer it any way you'd like to answer, but when you visit schools, what is your first thought to fixing it?
I actually don't have a first thought to fixing, right? There's an exercise. I'm gonna deviate for a minute. I'm gonna come back to your question, right? There's an exercise I do sometimes in workshops, and I like to do it when, actually most of the time the workshops have more women in there, but I like to do this particular workshop particularly with women. And so we're going to do this with Heather, and then and I can come back to your question. Okay. So Heather, I'm going to give you 7 words, and I want you to tell me how you feel about those 7 words. You ready?
Okay.
All right. These are 7 words. A woman without her man is nothing. How do you feel about that?
How do I feel about it?
About what I just said.
I think there is a lot of truth in that.
Ooh, okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. A lot of times when I hear that, you get what are you saying? What are you talking about? I dare you say that, da, da, da. And I respect that, right? But I'm gonna give you the same 7 words in the exact order, but I'm gonna change 2 things. All right, a woman, comma, without her, comma, man is nothing. So if you look at those same 7 words in the exact same order, mean 2 totally different things if you just put a comma, right? So usually, Calvin, when I walk into those spaces, I'm looking for the comma. I want to know what that comma is, because when I know when that comma is, I can begin to direct and drive the conversations or the solutions that I need for that particular thing. But I first need to know what that comma is. I'm always looking for the comma. Because for me, and again, this is just me, I'm not saying this is how everyone should do it. For me, if I go in with a fixed mentality, I know at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. But if I go in with a fixed mentality, I might miss something that's critical. And so the thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to dig. And this comes from this is something I've gotten from my grandfather, man. My grandfather just had a way of having a conversation, and in that conversation, man, he can get everything that he needed to know, and you didn't even know you were giving it to him. So I come in, man, and I'm always trying to have a conversation, or I'm trying to push thought in such a way that somebody's going to give me what that comment is, and once they give me what that comment is, I can provide what needs to happen.
Sure. That's
Okay.
insightful.
Yeah.
That's very insightful.
That's how you want it. That's how you want it. That's how you. That's how you want it. That's how you want to do that. You want that karma.
I want that karma, man. I'm looking for that karma because and the thing is, a lot of times they don't even know what the karma is, right? But if you ask the right questions, and you present it in the right way. I had a situation where I got a partner, man. He's I love this dude to death, right? But he had one of his clients in his office one day, and I don't know this at the time, and whatever this conversation is going on, it's not going well for him. So he calls me because he's like the bull in the china shop. You know, matter of fact, you and Bill may be kind of similar, Calvin. Me, I'm kind of like, I sneak in the back door, man, And so I get in there and Bill's like, yo, talk to this dude. And I said, well, what's the problem? And he tells the dude, talk to him, right? And this guy don't know me. I don't know who this dude is.
Right.
He says, man, I got to do what I got to do. Now, Calvin, right. You know, anytime someone says that, you may not know exactly what it is, but you know it ain't right, right?
It ain't right.
Yeah. So I didn't want to know what it was he needed to do. So I said, so why do you have to do this? He says, man, I got 3 kids and, my baby mama, man, she tripping and saying I got to get this and I got to get that and I got to do this and I got to do that. And I said, you know what? You MFing right. You got to do what you got to do, right? And so when I said that, it shocked him because he felt like I was going to say the same thing that Bill said. Mm-hmm. I said, you got them babies and them babies need something to eat. Whatever you need to do to feed them babies, you need to feed them, right? And so now he is really thrown off. So I say to him, so what's your success plan? He said, what do you mean success plan? I said, well, whatever it is that you got to do, you got to have a success plan for it, right? You got to be successful in order to make it happen. He said, well, I ain't really thought about that. I said, okay. I said, all right. Well, when you think about it, are you going to have a sustainability plan to go with it, right? He said, well, what's the sustainability plan? I said, even if you're successful, you're going to have to do this thing again, right? So you need to make sure that you can do this continuously, right? He said, oh, okay. And then I hit him with this one. I said, you do know they say Michael Jordan is one of the greatest basketball player to ever play. And when I said that to him, it really threw him off. He said, well, why are you telling me that? I said, because as great as he was, you do know he failed, right? And he said, yeah. I said, so what happens that even in your greatness that you're going to fail? I said, you're either going to die or you're going to go to jail. He said, man, Mr. Williams, you think I need do you think I need to work harder to find a job? I said, I don't really know what you need to do. I'm just throwing stuff out there. He walked out, and 3 weeks later, he came back. Mr. Williams, I got a job. And so I just do things a little different, But again, it's all rooted in trying to find that karma and trying to find a very untraditional way to get to the solution that they need to have.
So what you did, that was nice because what you did was you fathered. Mm-hmm. And that's what is missing. That's what is our secret sauce in our mentoring program. See, you fathered him. Mm-hmm. You just put it in a question form. And so when we do that, that's part of the engagement process, right? Mm-hmm. So when you do that, you wake up something that has been asleep, which means now he has to think. Mm-hmm. See, your questions caused him to think. In the past, he didn't have to think. He just said, hey, man, this is what's going, this is what I got to do. I got to do what I got to do. And then when we use that terminology, a lot of times we just do that to answer our problem. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To not even want to go into another step or another process to better it. So instead of you got to do what you got to do, hey, you turn around and you hit him with some points for him to think. Now his process is open. And so now, I think it's beautiful because that's one of the things I love to do to you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that is important to unlock the process, right? Because so many of our people in our kids' minds are closed. Yeah, because you did everything for them. Or they feel like everything was done for them, right? Mm-hmm. Or they got out here and was like, oh, I did this all by myself. And while you was tooting your own horn, you was closing your door.
Mm-hmm.
You was closing yourself off. You was putting yourself in a trap. And so every time now you need to answer something, the first thing you're gonna say is, I gotta do what I gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you like, okay. I mean, so you do understand. Like you had told him, you say you do understand. You're either going to jail or you going to that. Like you need to understand that. You know, but that's a beautiful thing, man. And I really appreciate. You know, I know we got to do this again, but this one last question, if at all, right? In your wildest dreams. Right? That you can make happen that's in your possession. What does it look like for you in repairing what you see?
What does it look like? Wow. A new field. Now, here's what I mean by that. And I don't know if I've answered the question, but a new field, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years ago, June 16th of 2 years ago, we buried my brother. Brother died from brain cancer. We were going, and we're from North Carolina. We were going to his burial, and we're actually on the way. My mother lives in Durham. We're from a little town called Chadburn. And on the way, I kept seeing cornfields, and I kept seeing cornfields. And at first, it really didn't register to me. But when we got inside of our community, I kept seeing cornfields. And I don't remember seeing these cornfields as a kid growing up. So I asked my mother, I said, "Mom, were these cornfields here when I was a kid?" And she's like, "I don't remember these cornfields, baby." And so we went ahead and we buried them. And after we came out, I went down another street where I knew there were no cornfields. And I remembered there used to be tobacco fields, right? They had uprooted all the tobacco fields and replanted them with corn because tobacco was dangerous and was killing people. And so corn was supposed to be a healthier crop. And so in my wildest dreams, I want to see a new field with a new crop. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Give that man a applause. No, it did, right? You want a new playing field. I love it. I love it, and I think I think we're responsible for it.
Yeah, we have to retill this. We have to retill the soil, and we have to reseed it, and we have to understand what we're seeding it with, because you can only harvest what you seeded. You know, right. And I just think that we have to be more mindful about the soil, the conditions, and the seeding. And if there's no emotion in that. There's absolutely no emotion in that, man. If you plant seeds in good soil, it has great conditions, and you give it the nurturing that it needs to have, we know what the crop is going to be. And I just think we have the ability to do that in small doses as well as larger doses. So if Calvin does it in Detroit and I do it here in Maryland, and then Calvin and I somehow get together and bring somebody in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and whatever, I just think we can build a new field.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
So
that is the vision.
So Heather, tell them where they can reach you at.
You can reach me at my website at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. Or you can reach me by phone at 313-759-7855. 313-759-7855. Always happy to receive your call.
Awesome. Brother Reginald, tell everybody where they can reach you at and where they can get your book.
In terms of getting the book, it's A Marginalized Voice, and you can go to marginalizedvoice.com or amvonlinestore.com, and you can hit me in terms of email is book like a book, Reggie at reginalwilliams.org.
Awesome. It's funny how can you flash that website for him?
Yes, I'm gonna see if I can do that.
And then flash Heather's website. So, here at Put Your Family First, this is an interesting take. I wanted to do this with my brother because we've been vibing on a different page, and I find it refreshing to meet someone who understands the plight and the efforts and the directions that, it's enough work out here. We have children in the foster care. We have children missing from human trafficking. We have children in juveniles. That's just 3 locations. Black women are the most incarcerated now, number 1. Black men are the most incarcerated, number 1. Right? And the only way we got here is because when it came time to stick together for family, we didn't. There were some things in the place for us to not get over. I remember just today at the funeral, the most beautiful statement was my aunt said, when you fall out of love, then you just got to go in the house, close the door, and find your way back to getting in love. Ain't no walking away. You got to find a way to get back to love. And for me, for you, for Heather, for us, something is in us that makes us want to do for the community. Something is in us that makes us want to make sure that our boys have a shot, fair shake, right? Something is in us, right? Because they're a dynamic. You have one political party tell you, hey, here's some policies that's good for you. You have another political party say, hey, those things are not good for you, but we're going to eat off those, right? And when you look at this phenomena, as I said earlier, we are incredible people. And if we just turn toward family from the womb, right? Because I now have the information something is happening in the womb to our children, but especially our boys. The seed of the seed, and the seed proceeds, and the seed go forward, and the seed, and everything tells this seed that he's not valuable. Well, for us, that's not the case. For us, Reg is written his books. I've written my books. Heather got books, right? We're saying, hey, you burglar alarm type over here, like, you can do this. You can actually restore your family and move forward and be successful, right? You can actually not have your son go to juvenile, not have your son or your daughter go to jail, not have your child caught in the political system, the pipeline, all of that, not be stuck in the syndrome. You can do all of that. But I think it's more important, as I close this, I think it's more important that we understand that no matter what you are going to do, Reg left some steps just today for you to begin to move your family, your community in the right direction, which is presence, meaning put your family first. My name is Calvin T. Mann. I'm the president and founder of Encourage Me Among Good Fathers Only. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you for coming, Reg. We're going to do this again. Maybe I got to come on out to D.C., Maryland, and just sit down at the table. But more importantly, man, I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody here. And God bless you and encourage me. I'm young. Peace.
Thank you. Bye, Calvin.